Welcome to our episode of The Dream Show. Our guest today is quirky, creative, confident, basically the perfect recipe for somebody who was built to dream and accomplish those dreams. So, welcome to Richard Gaffin.
Hi guys.
All right, Richard, tell everybody what your dream is. I'm stoked on this one.
So my dream is, well, it took a long time for me to arrive at it and arrive at the specifics of it, but my dream is to complete a six-song album by the end of this year.
It's a six-song album.
Well,
I don't know if I knew that detail.
Could be 5, could be 7, I don't know. See how the muse moves me or whatever. But
it's flexible.
Yeah, exactly.
How much of this album do you have done currently?
Good question. Well, as far as actually being laid down on track, nothing really. Most of the songs exist or are written in some form or another. So it's a matter, like the first step for me is just completing some of the writing portion of that work and then just start laying it down.
Okay, so explain to us a little bit about some of the roadblocks that you encounter when it comes to actually getting these songs recorded. Because I'm assuming, I'm not an artist, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that there's probably a different dynamic happening when it comes to accomplishing this dream because it does require so much creative brainstorming, which, can you just produce that on a timeline or?
Right. Well, this is one of the interesting things about coming to this dream in the context of also being at a marketing agency like CTC, where timelines, schedules are all treated very differently. And so one of the potential roadblocks to getting this done is working with musicians, which tends to be a little more flaky, which, I'm a musician too, so I get it. So, there's that element of it, but then there's also like the creative process is different because with the creative work that we do here at CTC, it has a very specific outcome that it's trying to generate. And generating an outcome with creative actually, in a lot of ways, eases the creative process because you know what you're trying to do. And you have a client that has expectations. But when you're making an album for yourself, the only expectation, the only goal is that it's good, that it feels right, that it expresses who you are on the inside, like all these like really vague things. And like so many creative endeavors, I guess, if you complete an album or a piece of work, you definitely know whether or not it's good enough, and you know if it's really expressing who you are, but you can't really explain why. And so I think that the process becomes a lot more abstract and kind of nebulous and weird. And so, that is a potential roadblock. But you could also see that as being, the fun part about it. The opportunity is being able to work in that space where the only outcome and the only goal is for it to be great and for it to feel right.
So the standard that this album is going to be based off of is if you think it expresses yourself clearly.
Yeah, I think that's, there's, another standard most albums are based off of is just like getting it done. So I think that's definitely part of it. But yeah, I think, to some extent, like it's, you need to avoid perfectionism in these kind of things because it's never going to be exactly what you want it to be. But that's the standard and that's the bar you're trying to clear. Is this, as a personal project, is this actually going to fulfill the things that I want to fulfill for me?
So as a personal project of self-expression, could you summarize like a main message or something that you're trying to communicate through this, what will eventually be an album?
Sure. Well, I guess not to get overly heavy, I suppose, but to some extent, like the purpose or the thrust of this album is like using music to explore, I guess this is pretty general, but using music to explore what I think the world means. I think it's about exploring my relationship to really big questions like God, like relationships, family, all that kind of stuff. And it's a way to explore a lot of questions that I've had for a long time and haven't really had the space to talk about or express in the way I want to. And I think that's something that music can do a particularly good job of. So I think that's what I'm interested in.
Prior to actually declaring this dream to CTC and now on the Dream Show, you already had a lot of skills that have set you up to make this possible. You've already been a guitarist, self-identified as a songwriter.
Yeah.
But what are you doing now to take those next steps to actually using your skills to create an album?
Well, I'm, I've been playing guitar for a long time, but I've been mostly playing guitar. And this is actually in the guitar community, I guess. There's something called a bedroom guitarist, where you plug in your room and you just kind of noodle around. And so coming out of that, I ended up being, I think I'm pretty good at one particular thing, which is doing sort of stereotypical like electric guitar solos, but I'm actually kind of bad at playing like rhythm and playing consistently and that kind of thing. So I'm in the process right now of taking lessons with a guy. He's a great stage and studio musician who's helping me out basically with, like I learned how to like run and fly and never learned how to walk or crawl. So I'm trying to get back to those steps and figure them out a little more.
I can definitely attest to the guitar solo as part of it because the first time I ever met Richard was at our staff Christmas party right after I'd been hired, and he got invited up on the stage to do a little guitar solo performance.
Yeah.
That was my first taste of Richard Gaffin.
We can drop in some footage of I mean, I don't know if I want the whole world to
Corey,
see my guitar face.
Get that footage in there.
But I definitely have a guitar face, so you can see it.
All right, before we sign off here, I would like to give you space to tell any other dreamers who are watching some advice on the process of dreaming or accomplishing your dream. How would you summarize something that you've learned in this process that you think would be helpful to other people?
Yeah, I think my main piece of advice would be don't be intimidated by the size of your dream. And by that I mean, don't be intimidated whether it feels too small or feels too big. So, for our clients out there who are entrepreneurs and your dream is just to, double your revenue or increase your revenue by X amount over the next year, that's not the most philosophical or like big dream in the world, but it doesn't matter because it's real and it's what you need to achieve the next step towards whatever you're moving towards. And then for me, speaking to maybe more creative types out there, my original dreams were these massive things, these sort of existential questions and like trying to figure those things out. And I was, I think to some extent kind of intimidated by the magnitude of those things and couldn't really get to a point where I could figure out what are small steps that I could take to get towards that. And so, if you were to ask me what my like dream for my life is, my dream for my life isn't to complete a 6-song album in the next year. But as far as steps that I can take towards becoming the type of person that I want to be and getting closer to those big dreams, I think completing the album is exactly the right thing to do. And it's concrete and it's something that I can actually show people when I'm done. And, I think my message is to people like me who are a little bit more internal, it's okay to go out and take small steps and do small things if they're building towards something bigger. So.
Yeah, amen to that. And what you're doing by not getting caught up in just trying to accomplish a big dream is making sure that you're not stunted or stagnant. You're still pursuing something while in the grand scheme of your life, you're moving towards whatever you ultimately identify to be that dream. But in the meantime, you're still doing something that's precious to you.
Exactly. Yeah. It's about, it's classic. It's so easy to fall into that tendency of believing your dream is so big that it's impossible to take a small step towards it even. And so there's this irony that for a lot of people, like the bigger you dream, the less you do, and that's weird and it shouldn't happen. So for me, it's about defeating that a little bit.
Perfectly said.
Thank you.
Richard Gaffin, enjoy that video of him at the Christmas party.
Oh boy.